everybody, it's Kelly with Soulful Creations, and today I'm here to do the day 2 of the secret sewing for Shamballa bags. So remember, we're working on the Mukava pattern, and you should already have your crossbody strap done, your front band, and your connector pieces. If you don't have them done yet, don't worry, you still have time to catch up. So just get started when you can. So today we're going to be doing the gusset and the lining. So you should have your, let me move these out of the way so we can go over what we need for today. So keep these connector pieces because we're going to need that. So you should have your 2 connector pieces. You should have 2 of your top gusset pieces, 2 of your bottom gusset pieces, and your stabilizer, 2 stabilizer pieces. Okay, and this is just, we're just focusing on the gusset right now. I'll go over the lining pieces when we get to that. So these are the pieces for the gusset. Okay, and then also for hardware, you're going to need 2 D-rings, 3/4 inch D-rings. So I have that. And then also we're going to need a couple of rivets. So that's what we're going to need right now to do our gusset. So I'm going to set this aside for a second. Okay. And we're going to stabilize after. Now, if you prefer to just stabilize each individual piece, you can do that too. I know some people don't like to sew and then try to press over the seams. I mean, I've done it both ways before. So do whatever you feel comfortable doing. I'm using Decaville Light. This is Decaville Light, the black in black. And I'm also going to add foam to my gusset when I'm done. So I will show you that too. I put the pieces together and then I cut out one whole piece for out of foam because I just like my gusset to just have a little more structure and stability there. So that's what I'm going to do. So for now, I'm going to set the stabilizer pieces aside and I'm going to get ready to sew my my gussets here. So I'm going to start with one here and I'm just going to mark the midpoint at the top. The top is the wider part here. So I'm going to mark the midpoint on the top here. Okay. And then also on this the bottom part. Now you should have on your pattern piece for your gusset top, you have the drop line because this is going to be a drop in. So we're going to have to fold this raw edge down when we get ready to sew everything together. So you should have that drop line drawn on the back of your gusset top. So we're going to go ahead and mark the midpoint at the bottom of the gusset top where we don't have the line there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I've been seeing some really beautiful combinations of fabrics in the secret sewing group. So I'm going to be so excited to see all these beautiful Mukavas. Okay, I wonder if anybody's changing their minds as they go, but I think I see some beautiful combinations. Okay, so now let's start with one of our bottom pieces and then our connector piece. Okay, so we're going to place our connector piece. We're going to center it on our bottom gusset and we're going to place it right sides together. So you should be seeing that seam on the back of your connector piece. So we're going to place that right sides together and centered. Okay, and then we can just base that on with like a 1/8 inch. So we're just going to do a quick little base stitch there and get that in place. Okay, so now, and if you notice, I put a piece of double-sided tape right here at the top of this connector here, because we're going to use that piece later. We're going to use that tape later to fold that down after we put our ring on. So just, you can either put it on now or you could put it on later. Okay, and now we're going to take our gusset top and we're going to put right sides together. So it's the end without the drop line that goes matched up to the top of your gusset, your bottom gusset piece here. So we're just going to match the centers here, get that clip together. Okay. And we're going to sew that together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Oops. A little piece of thread wants to follow me. Okay. And now we're going to flip this up and push the seam allowance down toward the bottom gusset. And you see your connector is up this way, right? And then we're going to top stitch that down. So right at the seam, right below that seam, 1/8 of an inch, we're going to top stitch. Sure I'm not pulling my thread out. Thought I grabbed it, but I didn't. Grab it. All right. So here we go. So okay. So now you should have a piece that looks like this. Okay. Now, before I put my D-ring on, I'm going to go to my heat press and I'm going to apply my stabilizer. So I applied my stabilizer. I'm just going to apply it just below that drop line like that. Okay. And center it, and I'm just going to use my heat press. I just used my Cricut Easy Press. I set it at 325 and I press for like 10 or 15 seconds. I spritz it a little bit with some water and then just press it for 10, 15 seconds. And I move it around though, because this particular vinyl, if you hold it in one place too long, it could melt the vinyl. So I would test out your vinyl first to make sure, or whatever material you're using, just to make sure that you have the right setting. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this one sewn up, and then I'm going to come back. Okay, so I have my stabilizer on my gusset pieces, and I just rough cut a piece of the foam. So I'm just using the Pellon Flex foam. So I just rough cut a piece of that. And after I sew this together, then I'm going to apply the foam. So now we're going to sew the bottom of our gussets together. So the narrow ends, we're going to sew those together with 3/8 inch seam allowance. So just clip those together, matching up the raw edges. And just know that the foam, if you don't want to use foam, I know some people don't like foam, and I don't always like foam either. But in this case, I do. So if you don't want to use foam, don't, or this is not your favorite foam, whatever you want to use. Some people like fleece. So whatever you want to use. Okay. That's sewn on. So now we're going to open up the seams here. We're going to open them up. So butterfly those seams open. We're going to open it up like this. And we're going to top stitch on each side of the seam. So open that up flat. Okay, when I get to the end, I just give a little pivot across, go to the other side, and then come back. Okay. Right, so now you have your gussets connected. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and apply my foam before I put my D-rings on and rivet. You can do it before or after, but I like to do it after. So I'm just going to take my piece of foam here and just lay this on top. And I'm going to clip it on, and I'm going to baste it on, and then I'll just trim the extra off. Okay. Just put a couple of clips in there. So I'm just going to baste on with 1/8 inch. I prefer to sew on the foam. I don't like fusing the foam. I don't like fusible foam because it causes a lot of wrinkling. So I prefer the sew-in kind. Okay. Alrighty, so now I have that on. Now I can just trim the extra off. And if you're using a domestic machine and you don't want this extra bulk, but you want to use foam, then you can always cut it out of the seam allowance and then fuse a woven interfacing on top. Then that way you won't have all this bulk in your seam allowance. Or you could use heat and bond to apply the foam out of the seam allowance too. That's another option. Heat and bond, if you're not familiar with it, it's a cool product. It's a heat activated adhesive that you iron on. So you iron it onto your fabric, then you peel the paper backing off, and then you put your other piece on top, whatever you're trying to fuse together, and then you iron that on, and it sticks them together nicely. Okay. And I find you don't get as much wrinkling with the heat and bond. You don't get the wrinkling with the heat and bond like you do with the fusible foam. Okay, so now I have my foam on. I like the way that's looking. So now I'm going to grab my D-rings. I'm going to slide a D-ring on. Okay. Then I'm going to remove the paper backing on my double-sided tape. And we're going to fold that over towards the back. Okay. So let me just show you. So we're going to tuck that right into the back here, as far as it'll go, lining it up, lining up those edges there, the sides, and then just press that in place, just like that. So just get it and make sure it's straight and press it. So now we have our D-ring on, and then we'll just need to add a rivet there. And I'll do the same thing with this one. So we're just going to hold this up, fold it down, get it as close as possible without sticking it to your fingers. And get it in there. Make sure it's straight. Okay. All right, so now I have both on. Both of those on there. And now we're just going to mark where we want our rivet. So I'm just going to eyeball it. I think I want mine about right there. Okay. She may give the measurements, but I'm just going to eyeball it. But if there are measurements, follow the measurements for the rivet. Just making sure that you're catching the piece underneath, the part that you folded underneath. That's the important part. You want to make sure that where you place that rivet, you're catching it. And if you pushed it far enough down, you should be catching both parts of your connector. Okay, so now I'm just going to punch that hole. I'm just going to fold this up a little so I can get to it. I'm just going to punch my hole. Same thing here. Oh, did I just punch through my... I just punched through my gusset. Oh, God. Well, I did punch through my gusset. And you know what? I was just thinking like, oh, don't fold it too far down. I didn't think I had it that far down. But, okay, I did punch through my gusset. Don't do that. But at least it's in a spot that won't be seen. It's high enough up that it's going to be in the seam allowance. So, hey, things happen, don't they? And I literally was just going to say, make sure you don't punch through your gusset. And I did it anyway. Ay, ay, ay. You know, sometimes I'll go ahead and make the sacrifice for you just to teach you a lesson. Good thing I didn't go that far, but it should be okay. Oh, jeepers. Who said I could do these videos? Was it you, Jazzy, that tried to encourage me to do these videos? Are you sure I'm qualified?
After that, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, well, it's okay to laugh at our mistakes and have a little fun. Alrighty. So, okay. Alrighty. So now our gusset is complete, whole and all. But yes, that's not going to show. I promise you that's not going to show later. Okay. So you should have your gusset, your complete gusset there. All right. So now we're done with our gusset. Now we're going to move on to the lining. Okay. So let me get all the lining pieces together and we'll come back and get our pockets sewn onto our lining. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to do our line. But first, what I wanted to tell you was I totally forgot that it had the drop line there. And so what I did was I cut the foam down below the drop line because I don't want to be folding extra bulk over with the foam. So now this will fold nicely over where the foam is here. So I just want to let you know, if you are using foam, cut it shorter and don't go all the way up to the top of the gusset here. And so that being said, remember my little hole over here? See, it won't even be seen. So nobody will know but us that I punched a hole in the top of my gusset. And since this is a secret sewing group, you're sworn to secrecy. I'll just leave it like that. Okay, so now let's get ready to do our lining. So you should have your two main lining pieces. I'm using waterproof canvas, but if you're using cotton, you go ahead, have it interface with a woven interfacing. So I have my two main lining pieces. I have one lining piece for my zipper pocket, and I have one lining piece for my welt pocket. And I'm going to do my zipper pocket with overlay. So instead of cutting the facing out of my lining, I cut the overlay out of my exterior fabric. So that's going to be for my zipper overlay. And then I cut a piece, the facing for my welt pocket. And I have drawn the box on the back where we're going to be sewing around for the opening to our welt pocket. And then this is our welt pocket piece. I placed a piece of double-sided tape on one side because we're going to be folding these raw edges together like that to make our welt pocket. And I also put double-sided tape on the back of my zipper overlay. Okay, so you'll need your zipper piece, your zipper tape, and your zipper pull. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to do the zipper pocket first. So I'm going to set the rest of this aside. Okay. And I'm going to mark the placement for the zipper pocket. So on the pattern, she gives you the measurement on where to place your pocket, your facing. And so I'm just going to draw a line there. So I know it's a really light line, but you can see it there. Okay, and I have my little mark here. I'm just going to mark the center of my overlay. That back in place here, just making sure. And I'm going to peel the backing from the double-sided tape. And she gives you the link for these pocket, how to do do a zipper pocket. So if you don't want to do your pocket this way, click on the link and follow the instructions for doing the zipper pocket. Okay. Now I have my overlay in place. So now I'm just going to sew around the outer perimeter of my overlay. I'm going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch around the perimeter, and I'm going to leave a long tails to pull to the back. And so I'm going to pull that and pull my thread to the back. Continue on. Okay. And I'll just tie these off. Okay, there's so many different ways to doing these pockets. I've done so 3-4 different ways. Sometimes I like to cut 2 pieces for my lining, but it's okay if you just use 1 as well. So, and then also I have my drop line marked on the back. I marked it wrong the first time. That's why I have 2. So it's the top one. So make sure you draw your drop line on the back of your lining. And you'll find that on the pattern piece. Okay, so I'm just cutting the fabric away from the zipper window, being careful not to cut my overlay. And once I have that cut out like that, now I'm going to get my zipper ready. So you could do it 1 of 2 ways. You could sew your zipper on to your lining like that, and then we can get it in place like that, and then just sew it on. Sometimes I do it that way, and that's the way I'm going to do it today. So I just place my zipper tape wrong side down onto the right side of my lining piece. So we're on the shorter side of our lining piece. So the wrong side down. So the right side of your zipper should be showing in the right side of your lining. And we're just going to sew that on. I'm going to sew it on at 1/4 inch. Okay, if you need to use double-sided tape or some clips, please do so. My bobbin's getting low. When it starts to sound like that, so I will change out my bobbin. Okay. Sun across there. Yeah, this got jumbled up back there. Okay, and then we'll bring the other end. And I haven't put my zipper pull on yet. I'm going to do that after I sew this together. So now I'm bringing it up to the other end. It's still the wrong side of the zipper to the right side of the lining. Making sure the sides are lined up. And get that on, get this end sewn on. Oops, doing a little willy-nilly. Okay. So now we have that. So this is what I like to do because I find here that it works. So what I like to do is I like to open it up and I like to top stitch. I just prefer to top stitch. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I prefer to top stitch my lining down. I'm always afraid that it's going to creep up into my zipper if I don't. So I always top stitch. So I'm going to do this side too. And now I'm going to put my zipper, this way. I'm going to put my zipper pull on. So I just freehand it. I don't use any tool for this. And I just kind of look down here, see, make sure it's lined up and get it on. And then now I'll pull it all the way off and do that again. Make sure my zipper's closed up. Okay. I'm going to grab my double-sided tape and I'm just going to put some double-sided tape along the top of the zipper on both sides. So I try to keep it away from the sides because we're going to sew the sides down. So I don't want to be sewing through any double-sided tape over there. So I just kind of do it in the center. Okay. Give it a good. So I have the zipper at the top here like this. And now orient your zipper the way you want. If you want it to close to the left and open to the right, then that's how you should have it. That's the way I have mine. And then I'm going to get this situated on here, get it centered. First, bring this up here. I'm going to start at the bottom here. Get it centered here. Make sure you centered on the side. You're lined up on the sides too. Okay. Then we can take the tape, the backing off the double-sided tape. And get that on. And the same thing on this side here. Okay, and once you get it on and it looks nice and straight to you, now we're going to top stitch the window here. So have your zipper pocket pulled up towards the top. We're going to start stitching here at the bottom. So we're going to start at 1/8 of an inch from the end of the window here, past the window rather, and then we're going to leave long tails. We're going to sew across the bottom, stop on the other side, and leave long tails. So don't go all the way around just yet. Okay. So I'm going 1/8 of an inch past the window, drop my needle, keep my tails long, and then I'm going to stitch across. And then I'll go 1/8 of an inch past the window here. Okay. I'm pulling my tails here. And then I'll pull those up to the back and tie them off. For the bottom, so we have the bottom stitched. Now we're going to bring our pocket down. Make sure it's nice and smooth down. Okay. Now we're going to go from where we stopped. We're going to start from there, come up the short side, go around the top, and go back down the other side. Move your zipper pull out of the way. And now we're going to finish up. And come down. Okay. And now we'll tie these off to the back. good. At our pocket. It's looking good. Push down. And then now we're going to fold one side back and we're going to just sew up the sides. Okay. I'm doing like a 1/4 inch. Okay. So now our zipper pocket is done. Okay, so now we can set that piece aside and we're going to grab the pieces for our welt pocket. Okay. And again, we're going to measure from the center top of our main lining piece. And that's where we're going to place. So this is our facing. We have our window drawn on the back. I have the centers marked. We're going to line that up at the placement mark, center it, get it in place, and then we're going to sew this box. Okay, so you can sew the whole box or you can just sew the long parallel lines. Okay, sometimes that's helpful so you don't get those funny corners. So whichever way you do it, if you want to sew all the way around or not, is up to you. So I usually do sew all the way around. Okay, so I'm just going to start, and I use a smaller stitch length at about 3.5. And I'm just going to go and stitch around. Make sure you get in those corners. It does get a little, with waterproof canvas, it does get a little thicker, but it's doable. Okay, so now I've sewn the box. Make sure. So now we're going to cut a line down the middle. So I'm just going to grab my board here, and I'm just going to grab my utility knife, and I'm just going to make a slit down the center, and I'm going to do it about 1/2 inch away from the end. So I'm just going to go right down the middle, as much as I can, center it, stop about 1/2 inch away, and then I'm going to go in at an angle. So I'm just kind of making a little triangle on the ends here. So, or a V, depending on which way you're looking at it. And get as close to your stitches as you can without cutting them. Okay. And then over here, the same. And so now I have these little triangles here that I'm going to pull to the back. Okay, and now I have to get this waterproof canvas turned into the back. So what I like to do is I like to crease it one way like this, and then get it to turn to the back. Okay. If you're using cotton, this will be a little easier, and then you can just take it to your iron and you can iron it down. Like, you can iron waterproof canvas a little bit from the front, but you really can't iron it from the back. So I don't use any iron. I just pretty much I'm going to finger press, and then I use some double-sided tape to hold the facing down out of the way. Okay, so being careful. And I just get my seam here, and I just kind of use my fingers to press it down. It's going to want to be stubborn at first, but I get it to submit. Okay, so once I get one side, I look from the front. I like the way it looks. Like that. Then I can I take my double-sided tape and I just run a piece there to kind of hold it. So I just put a piece of double-sided tape. So when I fold this back, it will lay down. Okay. Now I'll work on this side. Check it from the front. Make sure it looks good. Make sure there's no puckers. Move this out of the way now. Okay. And now I'm going to put another piece of double-sided tape right here. Press that down. And just get that. Place. Okay. Like that. Make sure. Okay. And when you like the way that looks, if you want to, you can also put a little bit on the side too, just a little piece on the side. And this is just really for the waterproof canvas, where it just doesn't like to lay flat. Okay, so there you go. So this is how I usually do it here. Okay, so now I have my window. It looks pretty good to me. Okay, so now we're going to turn this over. Okay, and we're going to get our welt pocket piece. And we're going to, if you have placed double-sided tape on one end of yours, go ahead and pull the paper off. We're going to fold this in half, matching the raw edges. Okay. Like this. And then we're going to place another piece of double-sided tape right on the raw edge side. Okay. On the raw edge side. And then we're going to get this placed in our window here. So we're going to place it, and we're going to leave about 1/8 of an inch showing. So when you see it on the right side, so this is going to get taped down, and it's going to be the slightest little gap here at the top for your pocket, for your welt pocket. Okay, and we're going to get that taped down. Okay, so I just like to start on one side, get it pretty centered, and then get that pressed in place. Okay, and then look at it from the front. See how that's looking. Okay, and if you like the way that looks, then you're good. Okay, so now we're going to take our double-sided tape. We're going to place a piece on the right side at one end, at the top of one end. So we're doing this on the shorter sides. Okay, and then one at the bottom. Okay, and now we're going to take the double-sided tape, take the backing off the double-sided tape on one end. And we're going to line that up right at the bottom of our facing. Okay, so it should be the same width. And we're going to just line it right up with the edge of our facing. So right side down on top of the back side. So you'll, on this side, you'll see both the right sides showing. Okay, and now we're going to, just like we did the zipper pocket, we're going to just start 1/8 of an inch away from the window. We're going to sew across and then stop 1/8 of an inch on the other side. I need to adjust this just the tiniest bit because I can see a little of my tape. So I'm just going to adjust this just a little bit. You don't want to see any tape there. Let's bring it up just a little bit. Okay, that's better. Okay, so now getting ready to sew. Leaving long tails again. So we're sewing through our lining and our welt pocket piece. Okay, just make sure it's even. Now we're going to pull those tails to the back and tie them off. Okay. Now we're going to pull this back and give it a good crease. Okay. So we're just pulling the lining back right at the seam, okay? Now we're going to remove the backing from the double-sided tape on this end, and we're going to bring this up right to the top of the facing here, lining it up like that, creating our pocket. Okay. And now we're going to finish sewing our window here, top stitching our window. So just make sure you keep the pocket down, out of the way. We're going to start where we left off and just sew across the sides and the top. Okay. And then we'll tie those tails off. So anybody wondering what it's going to look like yet? We're getting there. We got our lining done. We have our gusset done. Well, we got our lining almost done because we have our pockets done. Okay. So now we're going to sew that up. So that's what it looks like from the front. Okay. It's looking pretty good. We have our pocket. We just need to sew up the sides. So just like before, we're just going to pull this back. Got a little tape there, so I'm going to open that up. Okay. And I like to sew over those little triangles. Get a little close and sew over those triangles so they don't sneak back up. Okay. And just sew down the sides. Okay. Pull back this side. Okay, and now we have a complete welt pocket. Kind of cute there. Look, I like that. Okay, so now we're going to get both our lining pieces. Okay, let me just check the seam allowance. Very good. Okay, just checking my seam allowance. Okay, so now we're going to put them right sides together. And we're going to sew down the sides. sew down the sides first. So 3/8. Let me change my bobbin because I can tell it's low. I'm gonna change out this bobbin. Woo, look at that. It's really low. Okay, so fresh bobbin here. Oops. So sew down your sides. We're going to start at 3/8, and then we're going to gradually increase to 1/2 inch. So start at 3/8, and then I'll just gradually get over to 1/2 inch. Okay. So that your lining fits nice, not baggy. Do the same thing on this side. Then we're going to sew the bottom. Three-eighths. Just check your seam allowances. And now we can box the bottom corners here. So we're just going to pull this out. So pull it out like that. Okay. Match up the centers. I like to nest one seam one way and one seam the other way. And get it pressed in together like that. Make sure these corners match up. Clip in place, and we're going to sew across there. Like I said, once again, check your seam allowances. Make sure you're sewing at the correct seam allowance. I like to trim these down. Okay. Do the other side. Get your hand in there. Bring it out. So make sure you pushing the seam allowances to the right side. Oops, I broke my thread. Okay. Okay, so now we have our lining all closed up. Look at that. It's done there. Okay, and that is it. That's it for day 2. So what do we have? We have our lining and we have our gusset. So that's what you should have. Plus your crossbody strap, and your, what else did we do? Oh, and your front band. So that's what you should have done so far. Get those pictures into the group. Thank you for watching. I know. Thank you for laughing with me today and some of my silliness, but overall it's done here. We're making progress, so can't wait to see those pictures coming through the group, and I'll see you back here for day 3 or phase 3 of our secret sew with Shamballa Bag. See you next time.